The Brigmores were an ancient family, bankrupted a generation ago. Since then, the manor has housed two street gangs, the smuggling ring, innumerable rats, and the Brigmore witches. I'd always left them alone, but now a painter named Delilah had taken up witchcraft and formed a coven. She was trying something. A ritual. But what kind? The outsider knows. I cannot abide a mystery.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the last episode of this Brigmore Witches DLC playthrough. I am not going to purchase anything here, and I will explain why after the cutscene.
I scouted, sir. They've locked the front, and I've seen evidence of snares. Also, maybe it's nothing, but I spotted several statues of the woman Delilah. I don't know what it means, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
It means trouble. Anything else?
They're getting in and out of the house somehow, but I haven't spotted it. Sorry, sir. Best I can do.
Good enough. I'll take it from here.
Alright, so we are starting this mission at the outskirts of the Brigmore estate, and as you can see right here, we are being introduced to a new enemy. They're these sort of spectral hounds that the witches have enchanted. So basically, if you get too close to the skulls, the hounds will spawn and detect you and attack you. So just try to avoid them if you are planning on a Silence is Golden playthrough.
I killed a hound
And this
in the
assassin
yard
makes a good point.
and got
The
straight
only way
back
to
up
kill
and
these
went for me.
dogs
I had to
is
crush its
to
skull be
kill the
sure.
skulls. So even if you destroy the dog, it will still reform as long as the skull is intact. So, you know, just be aware. And then going back to what I said earlier when we were in the pre-mission shop and I said we didn't need anything, I've been stockpiling supplies for a while now. I try not to use too many mana potions, and that's really all we need for this. We aren't even going to use any sleep darts. There is one favor that would be kind of useful, and it's a hole in the fence that just lets us get in a little easier, but I decided I didn't need it, so I just ended up skipping it. Now, there are several ways to get into the Brigmore Manor. Probably the worst way for our playthrough is to go straight through the front door, which is exactly what I didn't want to do. So I came around to this section here because there is a sort of secret underground entrance, but Delilah knows that we're coming, so she's asked some of her henchwomen to move the lever that will activate the switch. Which means we have to go get the lever, and that's a whole other pain in the ass because the lever is on the other side of the mansion. Of course it is. So we're going to wait for this hound to turn away before we make our way out. Be aware there are a lot of traps in this level. The Brigmore Witches and Delilah both know that you are on your way, and they have prepared accordingly. So there is a special objective to avoid triggering any of the traps, which we managed to do just because, I mean, as long as you go slow and are paying attention, you can pretty much see all of them. So this is the route I decided to take to get to the backyard of the manor. There are other ways to get there. I just felt that this way was easiest because I avoided the bulk of the enemies that are in that courtyard, which include hounds, witches, and also several Delilah statues. The only issue with this particular route is that there are quite a few river crusts, and when they start shooting at you, they can alert the witches, so you kind of have to be fast. I did try sprinting through this section, but the witches saw me, so I had to opt instead for just blinking rapidly, which of course used up all my mana, but it's one of those things where, you know, I'll sacrifice a mana potion for getting out of there unseen. There's also a river crust on this area that you can sprint past because of no other enemies. You can kind of see there I got stuck on the fence a little bit. A lot of times the only way up is over the sharp edges of the fence, and you kind of can't avoid that. So be prepared to take some damage. Alright, so the lever that we need to open the underground passage is in the shed here. There's just an itsy-bitsy problem of it being booby-trapped with a ton of whale oil tanks, which shouldn't be a problem because we can easily avoid triggering the explosive trap. But the big issue is the river crust that's sitting in the corner because it starts shooting at you, which is fine, except for the fact that it can hit a whale oil tank, and it will explode the tank, and then all the witches in the courtyard will come running. So this actually took me a couple attempts, just because I kept getting unlucky, and the river crust kept blowing up the whale oil tanks, and the witches came running, and it was a whole disaster. But on this particular attempt, I got lucky. He didn't hit any of the tanks, and I was able to get out. I believe there's 3 witches in this area, and then a Delilah statue standing there, so just be aware, be cautious. So we're gonna make our way back up, and back the way we came. So we're basically kind of doing a very large loop, which is not very efficient, but it was what I deemed to be the safest path. Taking it nice and slow here, I don't want to fall at this point. You can see me being very cautious and quick saving quite a bit. That's because I did have some difficulty getting through undetected. Just because I think I did keep mistiming things and getting unlucky and just being too slow and letting the river crust detect me and alert the witches, so. But we're out of there. Took a couple attempts, but that last try was pretty darn clean. So I will take that. Just be aware, you might want to try to get fairly far back, because these witches, since you are in daylight, they can see pretty far, and they will see you if you are standing in a lighted area. So my first thought was to go through this way and just jump over the tripwire there, but there is a witch that stands in this little watch post here, and she was kind of starting to detect me there, and I got a little nervous, and I decided, you know what, the goal of this playthrough is to get through unseen. If that means I have to go the long way around in order to accomplish that, then I will. It's kind of a bummer, you know, it definitely added an extra minute or two, but I think at the end of the day it was the right call. And, you know, there's a very good chance that she wouldn't have seen me, but there was also a matter of I couldn't see over the ledge, so I had no idea where the hound was, so if I blinked over, it could have been that the hound would have been there, and there were just too many unknowns. That's a disadvantage when you are playing this game and you're blinking from a lower vantage point to a higher vantage point. A lot of times you don't know what's there. It's much better to be blinking from higher up to further down, because at least you have some idea of what to expect. Added a little time extra to the run, but it's all good because we remained undetected, and as you will see, we were able to blink down, see that the dog was there, so it could have been, if we blinked over that trap, it would have ended very poorly for us. So I just end up kind of waiting for the dog to turn around and walk away. I lost sight of him there, so I went, alright, well, I guess now's as good a time as any. And I just repaired the lever as quickly as possible and hopped on in there because the dog walked right past and I panicked a little bit. I was like, oh my god, what if the dog saw me? I also ended up shutting the door behind me. I don't think it matters, but it made me feel better. So that's a pretty big group of rats in front of us there, so we are going to want to avoid that. I was just making sure that the door was actually closed. Then I sprinted past the rats and entered the manor. So I had some vague idea of where to go once I was in here, just because I've watched playthroughs and I remembered some details, although not many. I didn't quite know which path to take, but I did know that I needed to get higher, which is why here you'll see me blink up, because I knew that the ground floor was not where I needed to be at this point in time, because we need to find a way to get to Delilah first. Because, well, Delilah is not actually in the mansion per se. She's in the vicinity of the mansion, but not in the mansion. Don't worry, that's very cryptic, but it will all become clear later on. So I decided to make my way this way, and I got lucky. This happened to be the right way to go. There is a rune over in that doorway there, I believe, but I decided to leave it because I don't need it. And then there was a corrupted bone charm sitting on the table to my left here that I ended up picking up. And actually, it was a pretty interesting one. Basically, as long as you stayed still, enemies couldn't detect you, but the penalty on the charm was that your mana didn't regen after using a spell. So I initially equipped it because I was like, oh, that would be really useful in the event that I get caught. Well, I very quickly realized, actually not as useful as it seems. That penalty to mana regen just hits way too hard, so I did at one point opt to take it off. Not quite at this point though, because I was still functioning under the assumption that, oh, this will be so good. Forgetting, of course, that I'm really taking routes where I'm not engaging with enemies at all, so if I play my cards right, the enemies won't even see me regardless, so it was not the best decision on my part, but I at least figured it out sooner rather than later. So at this point I'm going, this place looks familiar, I recognize this from playthroughs that I've watched, so I at least know that I'm in the right place. And as you can see here, I already have to use a mana potion because I'm out of mana from that corrupted bone charm. So it was at this point that I was piecing together, maybe this isn't a very good decision on my part. I'm looking around, just making sure I'm not going to trigger anything, disarming some traps while I go. And then I take a look and realize these are all paintings of Emily. And Daud does too, apparently. So Delilah has a plan to transfer her soul into Emily's body so that she can essentially take over the throne and rule Dunwall. Yeah. So that's a thing. And it's not good, and certainly not anything Corvo is in a position to stop at this point in time, so Daud, looks like it's your turn to be the good guy in this story. We took the lantern because that is how we were going to reach Delilah, who has made her way into the void, where otherwise we wouldn't be able to reach her. And as you can see there, I did take that particular bone charm off, just because I realized it was a mistake and I didn't need it. I still, kept it in mind. If I had reached a point where I felt I needed to use it, I would have re-equipped it, but I don't think I ended up re-equipping it. I think it would be very useful for certain playthroughs, but not necessarily for the one I was attempting. I am being a little cautious here because I know there's a witch that patrols this area, and I called it, but luckily for me, she kind of just walked up the stairs and then walked back down. I don't know if that was a bug or what, but I wasn't going to question it. I was just going to make my way right across. Do be careful, there are some parts of the floor that you can get stuck in. I don't know if that's just a glitch or what, but it did happen to me at one point, and then I got caught because I was stuck in the floor. I did panic a little there. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a close one, but I got lucky, and she was not paying attention. So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that her back is turned to me and make my way over. Luckily, at this point, I finally had some idea of where I needed to go, because once I picked up the lantern, the game was nice enough to mark the gallery for me. So I made my way across up above and then realized, oh, I kind of ran out of room. Luckily, they were really just not paying attention. All of them pretty much left, so I took advantage of that, made my way down, and then made my way back up. Do keep in mind there are quite a few traps in this upcoming section, so you'll want to tread lightly, because this would be a very bad point to trigger a trap. So I'm just going to take the time to blink over this last one. There are two witches down here that are talking about Delilah and the ritual that she is performing, which at this point we now know is the ritual to transfer her soul into Emily's body. Now, you could do this part without taking out any of the witches, because basically you need to blink down to that blank canvas there, use the lantern, and then enter the canvas. The problem is that the animation for entering the painting is very long, and the witches can see you during that cutscene, as opposed to other cutscenes where people would no longer be in a position to detect you. So what I decide to do after they finish their conversation is to take both of them out, just because I really want to be careful and would hate to get caught at this point. They do end up separating, so it's pretty easy for me to take both of them out. Just taking my time there because I was debating whether or not to actually do anything about them, and then I was like, you know what, it's the right thing to do. I'll regret it later if I don't. It was a pretty weird bug though, where I put her down here, and instead she just fucking flew and glitched all the way over there, and I was just like, no, I don't want you to be there, because your friend will definitely see you if you're there. So, Thanks, Dishonored. Then we can see her friend walking around, so I'm just waiting for her to reach a point where I can sneak behind her and knock her unconscious. And then I will enter the painting and do what I can to stop Delilah. Alright, just a little bit further. There we go. And she's none the wiser. We're going to go put her with her friend, and then we are going to enter the painting. But, you know, might as well pick up some money while we're at it. Alright, so this is the cutscene where the witches can see you if you don't knock them out. So if you're planning on doing a entirely non-confrontational run, just be aware you'll have to time this pretty perfectly in order to get past them. Alright, in we go.
You have many talents, Daud, and they've served you. Delilah's talents are quite different. She creates images, but she does more. She captures spirit. She insinuates her will into her subject, whatever it is. We're witnessing her masterpiece, and perhaps yours as well. I gave you Delilah's name, and you followed it to this moment. You see now what hangs in the balance. Emily's life, Delilah's ambition, an empire in the act of crumbling. In your long life, I've rarely seen you act with such consummate grace. I give my marks sparingly, and I don't play favorites. But I will watch this with unusual attention.
It's okay, outsider. You don't need to admit it. I know that deep down, Corvo's actually your favorite, but I'm probably your second favorite. So, here we go.
The void. Time to see what you've really got, Delilah.
It is indeed that time, Daud. So there are, of course, as always, two ways to take out the target. We can either kill Delilah, or we can neutralize her. Well, naturally, I am going to neutralize her because, well, killing her at this point sure would mess up our run, wouldn't it? So, if you do plan on neutralizing Delilah, you will need to sneak around the side here, because in order to disrupt the ritual, you will need to replace the painting of Emily with a different painting. And there just so happens to be one over here. So we are going to grab that.
Painting work for Delilah's ritual.
Now, I will admit, I'm not 100% sure as to how these statues function. I do know that they can detect you, but I just don't know how or what those circumstances are. So I just ended up kind of trying to walk around them since I wasn't 100% sure. As you can hear, Delilah has started the ritual. So we're going to sneak around here and wait for the opportune moment to swap paintings.
Viridian bile. The tones of your flesh I tempered with Pandician chalk. The same loom that spun the fabric of your dresses made this canvas. I made my brushes from the hairs of your own scalp. Emily, you cannot ignore me. My power is too deep. My reach too long.
Alright, so this is our window of opportunity. Luckily for us, she keeps her back turned for quite some time because she starts the actual ritual facing away. So if you do forget about the painting, you have time to grab it and then come over here and swap it before the ritual ends.
Brush touches canvas. Brush touches void. And now I see you, Emily Cole. I breathe your breath. I can feel what you do. Bright mornings in the pub. I feel the cold night air of the ruin where you sleep. And the stink of the river. Image strikes the eye. Eye touches the mind. Mind touches the world. The dark your caretaker, Callista. I feel your fear in the night. Your hunger to learn, to become someone important. My hunger too. My fear. You are becoming mine. We are nearly finished. Close your eyes, Emily. Sleep forever. Feel the void open beneath you. Make room for me. Give in to me, Emily. Give in to me now. Paint flows. Blood flows. Life goes. Out with the old, in with the new. You've lived in his bones long enough, sweet young thing. Finished. It is complete. I am... What's happening? This is all wrong! What am I becoming? Outsider's blood? Is this some trick? Daud!
Well, there she goes. That is Delilah Copperspoon neutralized. And Emily Caldwin saved. Certainly a turn of events that I would not have expected if I didn't already know that that's what was going to happen. But nonetheless, good job, Daud. You did it. I'm proud of you. And also, you didn't kill anyone, and you were never detected for the entirety of the DLC. So good job, my man. You are a changed man indeed.
No one will ever know exactly what it took to save Emily Caldwin from a living death as Delilah's puppet. No one except the outsider, who watches everything and thinks his own dark thoughts and speaks to few in any generation. I've learned that our choices always matter. To someone. Somewhere. And sooner or later, in ways we can't always fathom, the consequences come back to us. I came from Serkonos to Dunwall as a boy. Made my living as a killer. One of the few who've heard the outsider's voice. I murdered an empress, but saved her daughter, who will one day rule the Empire. Those were my choices. I'm ready for what comes. I have one more surprise for you. I asked for my life. When I killed your empress and took her daughter, something broke inside me. Now I want nothing but to leave this city and fade from the memory of those who reside here. I've had enough killing. So my life is in your hands. Make your choice.
You make an eloquent plea for a man with innocent blood on his hands. It's a shame Corvo doesn't know the real story, isn't it? How in these last days you passed through Coldridge Prison like a shadow, dared the tangles of Dunwall's underworld, and walked out unscathed, outwitted one of the greatest witches in a generation, all with consummate care and skill. How you saved Emily Caldwin, daughter of the Empress, first of her name, and no one will ever know. But how does it end for Daud, the hired killer, the murderer, the savior of the Empire? It's up to Corvo now.
And Corvo spared our life. Now that has everything to do with how we played through the original game. If we'd played High Chaos Corvo, he would have killed Daud in that instant. So keep in mind, this DLC is affected by how you play the main game and can change based on that. But that being said, that is the end of this particular playthrough of the first Dishonored game. I am so excited for Dishonored 2, although I have a lot of questions, such as how the heck did Delilah come back? Like, Daud, you had one job, buddy, and it was to defeat Delilah, and I thought you did it, but lo and behold, she's back in the second game, and more deadly than ever, so hate to say it, Daud, but you kind of dropped the ball there, buddy. But anyway, yeah, I'm super excited, and I've got a lot of questions, and hopefully the game will be able to answer those while also delivering the same awesome experience that Dishonored 1 did. I think it's pretty obvious that I will be planning on playing through Dishonored 2 more than once, and I will also plan on uploading those episodes onto my YouTube channel. Now, there might be some differences. I will definitely go for low chaos playthroughs and whatnot, but I might approach it differently as far as commentary goes. Since the game will be so new, I think maybe a no commentary run might be the way to go, just so that you can get further immersed into the atmosphere of the game and also won't miss any pertinent dialogue. So I'll think it over, but at this point in time, I can tell you my first playthrough will be a low chaos run with Emily, where I will try to remain undetected and also not kill anyone. It's only a few days away, but I can say for sure I can't wait. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you'll check out my Dishonored 2 playthrough.